The morning sun filtered through the tall windows of Kensington Palace, casting long golden rays across the marble floors. Kate Middleton sat at her writing desk, reviewing the day's schedule with her private secretary. The calendar was packed with royal engagements, charity visits, and meetings that would keep her busy until late evening. She had grown accustomed to these demanding days, especially when William was away on official duties. William had left 3 days earlier for what was supposed to be a week-long diplomatic mission to several European countries. The trip was important for strengthening relationships with key allies, and Kate understood the significance of his work. However, she couldn't deny that his absence left a noticeable void in their family routine. "Your Royal Highness, the car will be ready in 30 minutes for your visit to the Children's Hospital," her secretary informed her, checking her tablet for any last-minute updates. Kate nodded, her fingers absently playing with her wedding ring as she thought about the children she would meet today. These visits always filled her with purpose, seeing the brave faces of young patients who face their challenges with such courage. It reminded her why the work they did as royals mattered so much. The sounds of their children getting ready for school echoed from upstairs. Prince George, Princess Charlotte, and Prince Louis were in their usual morning routine of breakfast, teeth brushing, and gathering school bags. Their nanny, Maria, had everything well organized, but Kate always made sure to spend those precious morning moments with them before they left for school. "Mummy, will Daddy call us tonight?" Charlotte asked as she came bouncing into the room, her school uniform crisp and her hair neatly braided. "I'm sure he will, darling," Kate replied, kneeling down to adjust Charlotte's collar. "He promised to call every evening, didn't he?" The truth was, communication had been sparse since William left. The time differences and his packed schedule meant their conversations were brief and often interrupted. Kate understood the demands of royal duties, but she missed their evening conversations, sharing the details of their days and discussing the children's activities. George appeared next, looking every bit the responsible older brother as he helped Louis with his backpack. At his young age, George was already showing signs of the leadership qualities that would serve him well in his future role. Kate felt a surge of pride watching her eldest son, but also a pang of concern about the weight of expectations that would one day rest on his shoulders. "Will Daddy be back for my football match on Saturday?" George asked hopefully. Kate hesitated for a moment. According to the original schedule, William wouldn't return until the following week. "We'll have to see, sweetheart. Daddy's work is very important, but he loves watching you play." After the children left for school, Kate found herself alone with her thoughts. The palace, despite its grandeur and constant activity, felt different when William was away. Their marriage had weathered many storms over the years, from the intense media scrutiny during their courtship to the pressures of raising children in the public eye. Through it all, they had remained a strong team, supporting each other through every challenge. The drive to the Children's Hospital gave Kate time to reflect on how much their lives had changed since their university days at St. Andrews. Back then, they were just two young people falling in love, unaware of how their relationship would unfold under the watchful eyes of the world. Now, every public appearance was analyzed, every gesture scrutinized, and every family moment shared with millions. At the hospital, Kate threw herself into the visit with her characteristic warmth and genuine interest. She spent time with each child, listening to their stories, admiring their artwork, and bringing smiles to faces that had seen too much pain for their young years. These interactions reminded her of what truly mattered beyond the protocols and formalities of royal life. "Your Royal Highness, this is Emma." A nurse introduced a shy 7-year-old girl who had been undergoing treatment for several months. "She's been looking forward to meeting you." Kate knelt beside Emma's bed, noticing the drawings scattered around her bedside table. "These are beautiful, Emma. Did you draw these yourself?" Emma nodded shyly, then pointed to a drawing of a family. "That's my mummy, daddy, and my little brother. They visit me every day." The simple innocence of the child's words touched Kate deeply. Family was everything to Emma, just as it was to Kate. Despite all the privileges and responsibilities that came with their royal status, what mattered most was being together, supporting each other through life's challenges. As the day progressed, Kate fulfilled her remaining engagements with her usual grace and professionalism. She attended a charity luncheon, met with representatives from various organizations, and reviewed plans for upcoming events. However, throughout it all, she found herself checking her phone for any messages from William. The evening brought the familiar routine of helping with homework, bath time, and bedtime stories. Kate cherished these moments with her children, reading their favorite stories and listening to their prayers. Louis, the youngest, always asked for one more story, and Kate rarely had the heart to refuse. "Mummy, when I grow up, will I have to travel like Daddy does?" Charlotte asked as Kate tucked her into bed. "Perhaps sometimes, darling. But remember, Daddy travels because he wants to help people and make the world a better place. That's a very special job." Charlotte considered this for a moment. "Will you come with me if I have to travel?" "Always, if I can," Kate promised, kissing her daughter's forehead. Family stays together whenever possible. After the children were asleep, Kate settled into the sitting room with a cup of tea and the latest briefing documents. The house felt particularly quiet, with only the occasional sound of staff moving about their evening duties. She tried to focus on reading, but her mind kept wandering to William and wondering how his meetings were progressing. Her phone buzzed with a text message, and her heart jumped, hoping it was from William. Instead, it was from her sister Pippa, checking in and suggesting they meet for coffee later in the week. Kate smiled, appreciating her sister's thoughtfulness. Family connections had become even more important since taking on royal responsibilities. The large grandfather clock in the hallway chimed 10 o'clock, and Kate realized she had been reading the same paragraph for the past 15 minutes. She decided to prepare for bed, hoping that tomorrow might bring news of William's early return or at least a longer conversation than the brief calls they had managed so far. As she went through her nightly routine, Kate reflected on the strength of their partnership. They had learned to support each other through the unique challenges of their roles, understanding that their individual responsibilities ultimately serve their shared commitment to service and family. Even when apart, they carried each other's support and love. Standing at the bedroom window, Kate looked out at the gardens where their children played every day. The security lights illuminated the paths where she and William often walked in the evenings, discussing their days and planning for the future. Those quiet moments together were precious, away from cameras and public expectations. Her phone rang, displaying William's number, and Kate answered immediately. "Hello, darling. I was hoping you'd call. I'm sorry it's so late." William's voice sounded tired but warm. The dinner ran longer than expected, and then there were additional meetings with the ambassadors. They talked for 20 minutes, sharing updates about their respective days. William asked about each of the children by name, wanting to hear every detail about their activities and moods. Kate told him about the hospital visit and how moved she had been by the children's resilience. "I wish I could have been there with you," William said. "Those visits mean so much, not just to the patients, but to the staff and families too." "They do," Kate agreed. "But you're doing important work there too. The children understand." After they said goodnight, Kate felt better despite missing him terribly. Their connection remained strong regardless of the physical distance, built on years of shared experiences and mutual understanding. She knew that royal duties would always require sacrifices, but they had learned to make those sacrifices together. Sleep came slowly that night, with Kate's mind still processing the day's events and looking forward to William's return. She had no way of knowing that hundreds of miles away, William was making an unexpected decision that would change their plans completely. The next morning brought its usual rhythm of breakfast preparation and school preparations. Kate was in the kitchen, helping pack the children's lunch boxes when her private secretary appeared with an unusual expression on her face. "Your Royal Highness, I've just received some unexpected news from the prince's office," she said carefully. "There have been some changes to his schedule." Kate looked up from Charlotte's sandwich, sensing something significant in her secretary's tone. What kind of changes? The meetings in Brussels have been rescheduled, and the prince has decided to return to London earlier than planned. His flight should arrive this afternoon. Kate felt her heart skip a beat. William was coming home early? This was completely unexpected and raised immediate questions about whether something was wrong or if there had been some kind of emergency. Did they say why the change was made? Kate asked, trying to process this information while maintaining her composure in front of the children. No specific details were provided, Your Royal Highness. Only that the prince wanted to speak with you personally upon his return. The rest of the morning passed in a blur of speculation and preparation. Kate went through her scheduled activities with her mind elsewhere, wondering what could have prompted such a sudden change in plans. In their world, schedules were carefully planned months in advance, and unexpected changes usually signified something important. As afternoon approached, Kate found herself unusually nervous about William's return. Their marriage was strong, but the pressures of royal life sometimes created situations that required careful navigation. She hoped that whatever had prompted his early return could be resolved together, as they had always done before. The afternoon sun was beginning to cast longer shadows across the palace grounds when Kate received confirmation that William's flight had landed safely at RAF Nordholt. Her hands trembled slightly as she read the message from his protection officer, indicating they would arrive at Kensington Palace within the hour. The unexpectedness of his return continued to gnaw at her, creating a mixture of excitement and apprehension that she couldn't shake. Kate dismissed her afternoon meetings, much to the surprise of her staff who were accustomed to her unwavering commitment to her schedule. She needed time to process whatever news William was bringing home and wanted their conversation to happen away from curious eyes and ears. The palace staff, well trained in discretion, made themselves scarce as she waited in their private sitting room. Standing before the mirror in their bedroom, Kate examined her reflection with critical eyes. The stress of the past few days showed in the slight tension around her eyes, despite her best efforts to maintain her composed public facade. She touched up her makeup and smoothed her dress, habits formed from years of being photographed and scrutinized. Even in private moments with William, she found herself maintaining certain standards of appearance. The sound of car doors closing in the courtyard below made Kate's heart race. Through the window, she watched as William emerged from the black Range Rover, his tall frame unmistakable even from a distance. His body language seemed different somehow, more purposeful than the usual weariness that followed long trips. His protection officers maintained their professional distance as he strode toward the palace entrance with determined steps. Kate positioned herself in the sitting room, choosing not to rush downstairs to greet him as she normally would. Something about this situation felt different, more serious, and she sensed that their reunion would require privacy from the very beginning. The familiar sound of his footsteps on the marble stairs grew closer, each step bringing her closer to understanding the reason for his unexpected return. When William appeared in the doorway, Kate felt her breath catch in her throat. Despite seeing him on video calls, nothing compared to his physical presence filling the room. He looked tired but alert, his blue eyes searching her face with an intensity that made her stomach flutter with nervous energy. For a moment, they simply looked at each other across the room. Two people who had shared everything yet suddenly felt like strangers navigating uncertain territory. "Kate," William said softly, his voice carrying emotions she couldn't immediately identify. "You're home early," Kate replied, her own voice steadier than she felt. "The children don't know yet. They're still at school." William nodded, closing the door behind him and ensuring their privacy. "Good. I wanted to speak with you first." The formality in his tone sent a chill through Kate's chest. In their private moments, William was usually warmer, more relaxed. This controlled demeanor suggested news that would require careful handling. Kate gestured toward the sofa, her movements graceful despite the tension she felt. "Sit down," she said gently. "Tell me what's happened." William remained standing for a moment longer, running his hand through his hair in the gesture Kate knew indicated he was working through complex thoughts. When he finally sat across from her, maintaining distance rather than joining her on the same sofa, Kate's apprehension deepened. "There's been a development," William began carefully, "something that affects our family directly." Kate's mind immediately went to the worst possibilities. Health concerns, security threats, scandals involving other family members, changes in the line of succession. Living in their world meant being prepared for any number of crises that could emerge without warning. "Is everyone safe?" Kate asked, her maternal instincts overriding everything else. "Yes, everyone is safe," William assured her quickly, recognizing her immediate concern. "This isn't about safety or health. It's about opportunity." The word opportunity hung between them, loaded with implications Kate couldn't yet understand. In their world, opportunities often came disguised as obligations, chances to serve that required significant personal sacrifice. She waited for William to continue, knowing that rushing him would only make the conversation more difficult. "The meetings in Brussels went better than anyone expected," William continued. "Much better. The initiatives we've been working on for sustainable development and climate action have gained unprecedented support from the European partners." Kate felt relief beginning to wash over her. This sounded like positive news, the kind of diplomatic success that William worked so hard to achieve. Yet his serious demeanor suggested there was more to the story. "That's wonderful news," Kate said encouragingly. "You must be pleased with the progress." "I am pleased," William agreed. "But the success has created new expectations. The European Council has invited me to take on a new role, a special appointment that would significantly expand our international work." Kate felt her stomach tighten as the implications became clear. Expanded international work meant more travel, longer separations, and greater demands on their already stretched family time. She kept her expression neutral, waiting to hear the full scope of what William was considering. The position would involve coordinating climate and sustainability efforts across multiple countries, William explained. "It's exactly the kind of work I've been passionate about, the chance to make real impact on issues that matter for our children's future." "How much travel would be involved?" Kate asked, though she suspected she already knew the answer wouldn't be what she wanted to hear. William's pause told her everything. Significant travel, possibly spending 2 weeks out of every month in different European capitals, sometimes longer for major conferences and summits. The room fell silent as Kate processed this information. 2 weeks out of every month meant the children would grow up seeing their father even less than they already did. It meant she would shoulder even more of the family responsibilities while maintaining her own demanding schedule of royal duties. It meant their marriage would face new strains just when they had found a workable balance. "What did you tell them?" Kate asked finally. "That I needed to discuss it with you before making any decisions," William replied. "That my family comes first, always." Kate appreciated that he hadn't made commitments without consulting her, but she also recognized the weight of expectation that came with such an offer. Refusing would likely mean disappointing important allies and potentially limiting future opportunities for the causes they both cared about. "When do they need an answer?" Kate inquired, her mind already working through the practical implications. "Within the week. The position would begin in 3 months, giving us time to adjust our schedules and responsibilities." Kate stood and walked to the window, looking out at the garden where their children played every day. The normal life she tried to create for them within the constraints of royal duty would become even more challenging if William accepted this role. Yet she also understood the importance of the work and how much it would mean to him personally. "Tell me honestly," Kate said without turning around. "How much do you want this?" William joined her at the window, standing close enough that she could feel his warmth but still maintaining the careful distance that had characterized their conversation so far. "More than almost anything I've ever been offered professionally," he admitted quietly. "The chance to influence real policy, to work directly with leaders who can implement meaningful change. Kate, we could actually make a difference on climate change instead of just talking about it." The passion in his voice was unmistakable, and Kate felt her heart break a little. She had always supported William's commitments to environmental causes, understanding how deeply he cared about leaving a better world for their children. This opportunity represented everything he had worked toward for years. But, Kate prompted, sensing there was more. But, I know what it would cost us personally, William continued. The children need stability, routine, both parents present for important moments. And we've worked so hard to build the balance we have now. Kate turned to face him, seeing the conflict written clearly across his features. This was William at his most vulnerable, torn between duty and desire, between serving the greater good and serving his family's needs. The children aren't the only ones who need stability, Kate said softly. I need it too. We need it together. William reached for her hand, the first physical contact since his return. His fingers were warm and familiar, reminding Kate of all the times they had faced difficult decisions together. I know, he said simply. That's why I came home early. This decision isn't mine alone to make. Kate squeezed his hand, feeling the full weight of the choice before them. Supporting William's acceptance would mean reshaping their entire family dynamic, finding new ways to maintain connection across distances and time zones. Encouraging him to decline would mean wondering forever if they had made the right choice, if they had put personal comfort ahead of meaningful service. Have you thought about alternatives? Kate asked. Ways to be involved without taking on the full appointment? Some, William replied. I could serve as an advisor, participating in major initiatives without the day-to-day coordination responsibilities. It wouldn't be the same level of influence, but it would allow for more family time. Kate considered this option, recognizing it as a compromise that might satisfy multiple needs. Yet she also knew William well enough to understand that partial involvement might ultimately prove more frustrating than no involvement at all. The sound of car doors in the courtyard below indicated the children's return from school. Their voices carried up through the windows, excited chatter about their day, and anticipation of seeing their father unexpectedly home. Kate and William exchanged glances, both understanding that their private discussion would need to continue later. Should we tell them about the opportunity? Kate asked. Not yet, William decided. Let's enjoy their excitement about my early return first. There will be time to discuss the implications once we've made our decision. Kate nodded in agreement, grateful for his wisdom in protecting the children from adult concerns for as long as possible. They would need to be told eventually, especially if William accepted the position, but for now, they could simply be happy that their father was home unexpectedly. The sound of running footsteps on the stairs announced the children's approach. William straightened his shoulders and prepared to shift into father mode, setting aside the weighty concerns of international diplomacy for the immediate joy of reuniting with his children. Daddy! Charlotte's voice rang out as she burst through the door, followed closely by George and Louis. Their faces lit up with pure delight at seeing their father home when they hadn't expected him for days. Kate watched William embrace each child, listening to their rapid-fire questions about his trip and their excited updates about school activities. In this moment, seeing the genuine happiness on their faces, the complexity of the decision ahead felt overwhelming. How could they risk disrupting this precious family dynamic for any professional opportunity, no matter how important? Yet, as Kate observed William with the children, she also saw how naturally he shifted into discussions about the environmental projects he had been working on, how he encouraged George's interest in conservation, and Charlotte's questions about helping animals. This passion for environmental protection wasn't separate from his role as a father. It was an integral part of the legacy he wanted to leave his children. As the evening progressed through dinner and family time, Kate found herself studying William with new awareness. The opportunity before them wasn't just about career advancement or international recognition. It represented the chance to turn years of advocacy and awareness raising into concrete policy and action. For someone who had spent his entire life in service to others, this role offered the possibility of service with unprecedented impact. The evening hours after the children's bedtime found Kate and William back in their sitting room. the earlier tension returning as they faced the conversation that would shape their family's future. Kate had spent dinner observing William's interactions with their children, noting how his eyes lit up when discussing the environmental work that meant so much to him. The complexity of their decision had only deepened as she watched him torn between two loves, his family and his calling to serve. "I've been thinking about what you said earlier," Kate began, settling into her favorite chair with a cup of tea, "about making a real difference versus just talking about it." William looked up from the briefing documents he had been reviewing, papers that detailed the scope and expectations of the European position. The offer was even more comprehensive than he had initially described, involving coordination with heads of state and direct influence over policies that could affect millions of lives. "And what are your thoughts?" William asked, setting aside his papers to give Kate his full attention. Kate chose her words carefully, understanding that this conversation would influence not only their immediate future, but also the precedent they set for handling such decisions throughout their marriage. "I think about the children we met at the hospital yesterday, about the world they're inheriting. If this position could genuinely help create a better environment for them, then maybe we need to consider it seriously." William's expression showed surprise at Kate's perspective. He had expected her to focus primarily on the family disruption, the challenges of managing increased separation and responsibilities. Her consideration of the broader implications touched him deeply. "You've always understood the bigger picture," William said softly, "even when it costs us personally. But I also think about Charlotte asking if she'll have to travel for work when she grows up," Kate continued. "About George wondering if you'll be at his football matches. About Louis learning to walk while you're in Brussels or Copenhagen." The weight of these personal costs settled between them, as real and pressing as any diplomatic consideration. Kate had lived through William's previous absences, managing 3 young children while maintaining her own demanding schedule of royal duties. She knew exactly what increased travel would mean for their daily lives. "I've been wondering," Kate said thoughtfully, "whether there might be ways to structure the role differently, to maximize impact while minimizing family disruption." William leaned forward with interest. Throughout his career, Kate had often seen solutions that escaped him, approaching challenges from angles that his more traditional training had overlooked. "What are you thinking?" he asked. "What if you proposed a modified arrangement? Perhaps concentrating the travel into specific periods rather than spreading it throughout each month. Intensive 2-week sessions followed by longer periods at home. Or focusing on digital coordination when possible, with in-person meetings reserved for critical negotiations." William considered this suggestion, recognizing its potential merit. The European officials had emphasized their desire for his involvement more than their insistence on traditional structures. There might indeed be room for creative arrangements that served everyone's needs. The challenge would be convincing them that alternative structures could be effective, William replied. "Traditional diplomacy relies heavily on relationship building through regular face-to-face contact. Then, maybe you demonstrate that technology and intensive sessions can build equally strong relationships," Kate suggested. "You've always been innovative in your approach to royal duties. This could be an extension of that innovation." Kate's phone buzzed with a message from her private secretary, reminding her about the next day's schedule. Looking at the long list of commitments, Kate was reminded of how complex their coordination had become even with William's current level of travel. Adding significantly more absence would require restructuring her own responsibilities as well. "There's something else we need to consider," Kate said, showing William her schedule. "If you accept this role, I'll need to modify my own commitments. Some events require both of us, and others become more challenging when I'm managing everything alone." William studied Kate's schedule, realizing how much he had underestimated the ripple effects of his potential new role. Kate's work was equally important, her patronages and causes deserving of the same level of attention and commitment. They functioned as a team, and changes to his role inevitably affected her ability to fulfill her own responsibilities. "I hadn't fully considered the impact on your work," William admitted. "You've built such important relationships with your charities and organizations. They depend on your consistent involvement. They do, Kate agreed. But that doesn't mean we can't find solutions. Perhaps I could take on some aspects of the environmental coordination, particularly initiatives involving children and families. My background and interests could complement the role rather than competing with it. This suggestion opened new possibilities that neither had previously considered. Kate's genuine passion for early childhood development and family welfare could bring valuable perspectives to environmental policy, particularly regarding how climate change affected vulnerable populations. You would be willing to expand your international work as well? William asked, both surprised and moved by Kate's offer. If it meant we could travel together sometimes, if it meant our work could reinforce each other rather than pulling us in different directions, then yes, Kate replied. We've always been stronger together. William stood and moved to the window, looking out at the London skyline beyond the palace grounds. Lights twinkled in apartments and houses where families were settling in for the evening, parents helping with homework and tucking children into bed. The normalcy of those domestic scenes contrasted sharply with the extraordinary decisions he and Kate faced. I keep thinking about legacy, William said quietly. What we want to leave for George, Charlotte, and Louis. Is it better to be present for every school event and bedtime story, or to work toward ensuring they inherit a world where such simple pleasures remain possible for everyone? Kate joined him at the window, understanding the philosophical weight of his question. As future monarchs and current public servants, they faced unique pressures to balance personal fulfillment with service to others. Maybe it's not an either-or choice, Kate suggested. Maybe it's about finding ways to involve them in understanding the importance of the work, helping them see service as a family value rather than something that takes us away from family. The idea of involving their children more directly in understanding their parents' work held appeal for both William and Kate. Rather than simply accepting absences as necessary sacrifices, they could help the children understand the purpose behind their service. Charlotte already asks about helping animals, William noted. George is fascinated by conservation efforts. They're at ages where they could begin to understand the connection between our work and their future. Exactly, Kate agreed. And if we're strategic about which events they attend, which trips might be appropriate for them, we could actually strengthen our family bonds while fulfilling these expanded responsibilities. Kate's phone rang, interrupting their conversation. The caller ID showed her mother's number, and Kate realized she had promised to call earlier in the evening. She declined the call, knowing she would need to explain later, but not wanting to break the flow of this crucial discussion with William. Your parents, William observed. They should probably be part of this conversation too. This decision affects more than just our immediate family. Kate nodded, appreciating William's consideration for her parents and their role in supporting their family. The Middletons have been instrumental in providing stability and normalcy for the children, particularly during periods when royal duties required extensive travel. They'll support whatever we decide, Kate said confidently. But you're right that they deserve to understand what we're considering. The grandfather clock in the hallway chimed 11 times, reminding them both of how late the evening had grown. Tomorrow would bring its own demands and responsibilities, and they both needed rest to think clearly about the decision ahead. We don't have to solve everything tonight, Kate said gently. But I want you to know that whatever we decide, we'll face it together. This opportunity is important, and we'll find a way to make it work for our family if that's what you choose. William turned from the window to face Kate directly, seeing in her expression the love and commitment that had sustained them through years of public scrutiny and personal challenges. Her willingness to consider radical changes to their family structure, her creative thinking about solutions, and her recognition of the opportunity's importance moved him profoundly. I love you for understanding why this matters to me, William said, reaching for Kate's hands. And I love you for refusing to let that understanding override your concerns about our family. Kate squeezed his hands, feeling the familiar comfort of their physical connection. That's what partnership means, isn't it? holding space for both dreams and practical realities. They stood together in comfortable silence for several minutes, processing the evening's conversation and the options they had explored. The decision still required careful consideration, consultation with advisors, and detailed planning, but the framework for moving forward had become clearer. Tomorrow I'll contact the European Council and request a more detailed briefing on the role's requirements, William decided. I want to understand exactly what flexibility might be possible before we make our final decision. And I'll speak with my private secretary about how my schedule could be modified to complement rather than compete with expanded international work, Kate added. Kate's phone buzzed again, this time with a text message from her mother asking if everything was all right. Kate quickly responded that she would call in the morning, not wanting to worry her parents unnecessarily, but also recognizing the need to keep their conversation private until decisions were made. The children will have questions tomorrow about why you're home early, Kate noted. How much should we tell them? Enough to satisfy their curiosity without creating anxiety, William replied. Maybe that Daddy had a good meeting and wanted to come home to see them sooner than planned. Kate appreciated William's instinct to protect their children from adult concerns while still being truthful. As they grew older, George, Charlotte, and Louis would need to understand the complexities of their parents' roles, but for now, they deserved the security of childhood innocence. As they prepared for bed, Kate felt a mixture of exhaustion and anticipation. The conversation had revealed new possibilities she hadn't previously considered, ways of approaching the challenge that could strengthen rather than strain their family bonds. William's willingness to explore alternatives and her own readiness to adapt convinced Kate that they could navigate whatever decision lay ahead. Standing in their bedroom, Kate caught her reflection in the mirror again. This time she saw not stress and uncertainty, but determination and partnership. Whatever the European Council's response to William's inquiries, whatever modifications proved possible or impossible, she knew they would face the future together with clear communication and shared commitment to both service and family. The decision was far from final, but the path forward had become much clearer through their honest conversation. Tomorrow would bring new information, further discussions, and gradually the clarity needed for such an important choice. Tonight, however, Kate felt grateful for the strength of their marriage and optimistic about their ability to create solutions that honored all of their values and commitments. 3 weeks had passed since William's unexpected return home, and the careful deliberations that followed had transformed what initially seemed like an impossible choice into a groundbreaking opportunity for both personal growth and public service. The solution they ultimately crafted surprised even their closest advisors with its innovation and potential for setting new precedents in royal duties. The morning of the announcement found Kate standing in their private garden, watching William practice his remarks for the press conference scheduled later that day. The children were at school, unaware that their parents were about to reshape not only their own lives, but potentially the future approach to royal service itself. "Are you nervous?" Kate asked as William concluded his practice session. "Strangely, no," William replied, genuine surprise in his voice. "I think because we've thought through every aspect so thoroughly, considered every angle. This feels right in a way that purely accepting or declining the original offer never did." The solution they had developed with the European Council exceeded everyone's initial expectations. Rather than simply modifying the travel requirements, they had created an entirely new model for international cooperation that leveraged modern technology, strategic partnerships, and innovative approaches to diplomatic engagement. William would indeed accept the coordination role, but with a structure that had never been attempted before in international diplomacy. He would establish periods of intensive engagement, spending concentrated time in Europe building relationships and implementing initiatives, followed by longer periods based in London, where he could coordinate efforts digitally while maintaining his family responsibilities and UK-based royal duties. More significantly, Kate had been invited to serve as a special advisor on family and social policy within the environmental framework, bringing her expertise in early childhood development to bear on climate adaptation strategies for vulnerable populations. This joint approach would allow them to travel together for major initiatives while ensuring their children's stability and their own relationship strength. I keep thinking about yesterday's meeting with the children, Kate reflected, settling beside William on their favorite garden bench. The previous evening, they had finally shared the news with George, Charlotte, and Louis, explaining the opportunity in age-appropriate terms and involving them in discussions about how the family could adapt to new responsibilities while staying strong together. George's response had been particularly touching. "So you'll be helping to save the environment for us and other children?" he had asked with the serious expression he wore when processing important information. "That's exactly right," William had confirmed. "Mummy and Daddy will work together to help make sure you and all children have a healthy planet to grow up on." Charlotte's practical mind had immediately gone to logistics. "Will we still have our family movie nights?" she had asked anxiously. "Absolutely," Kate had assured her. "Some things are too important to change. Family time is sacred." Louis, at his young age, had been most excited about the prospect of occasional travel to help Mummy and Daddy with important work, as they had explained it to him. "I think their excitement about being involved made all the difference," William observed. "Instead of seeing our work as something that takes us away from them, they're beginning to understand it as something we do for them and with them when possible." Kate nodded, remembering Charlotte's suggestion that they could video call from different countries to show their classmates what environmental work looked like around the world. The children's enthusiasm had reinforced her and William's conviction that they had found the right approach. The garden where they sat held particular significance for their family, representing the private space where they could simply be themselves away from public scrutiny. Many of their most important conversations had taken place here, from discussions about their engagement to decisions about the children's education. Now, it was the setting for reflecting on perhaps the most significant professional decision of their marriage. "Your parents were surprised by how enthusiastic they were when we told them," William noted, referring to the Middletons' response to the news the previous weekend. "They've always understood that service is important to both of us," Kate replied. "But I think they were impressed by how much thought we put into making it work for everyone." Kate's parents had indeed been supportive, particularly when they understood how the new arrangement would actually create more opportunities for family involvement rather than less. The innovative structure meant that when William and Kate did travel, it would often be for longer periods that could accommodate family visits or cultural experiences for the children. The sound of a helicopter approaching reminded them both that the day's public announcement was drawing near. William's press conference would be followed by joint interviews with Kate, and then a more informal family photo session to demonstrate their unity and excitement about the opportunity ahead. "Are you ready for the questions about work-life balance?" Kate asked with a slight smile, knowing that this topic would dominate much of the media coverage. "I think our answer writes itself," William replied. "We're not trying to balance work and life as separate competing priorities. We're trying to integrate them in ways that strengthen both our service and our family." This philosophy represented a significant shift from traditional royal approaches, where duty and personal life were often viewed as necessarily conflicting forces requiring careful balance. William and Kate's new model suggested that meaningful service could actually enhance rather than detract from family life when approached thoughtfully. Kate's phone chimed with a message from their children's school, confirming arrangement for picking them up after the announcement. The school had been wonderfully supportive, understanding the unique circumstances of having royal parents and helping to shield the children from excessive media attention while still allowing them to understand the importance of their parents' work. "I still can't quite believe the European Council agreed to such an unconventional arrangement," Kate mused. "The negotiations have been complex, requiring creative thinking from all parties involved." Traditional diplomatic structures had never accommodated the kind of flexible, family-centered approach that William and Kate proposed. However, their reputation for innovative and effective royal service had given them credibility to experiment with new models. I think they recognize that the old ways aren't necessarily the most effective ways, William replied. If anything, our approach might prove more impactful because it's sustainable and authentic to who we are. The arrangement they had crafted included several groundbreaking elements. William would serve as senior climate coordination advisor rather than full-time coordinator, allowing him to focus on strategic initiatives rather than day-to-day administrative tasks. Kate's involvement would bring essential perspectives on how environmental policies affected families and children, areas often overlooked in traditional policy development. Most importantly, their joint approach would include regular public engagement designed to help citizens understand and support environmental initiatives, leveraging their communication skills, and public platform in service of policy implementation rather than just awareness raising. The pilot program structure gives us room to adjust if we need to, Kate noted, referring to the 2-year initial commitment that would allow all parties to evaluate the effectiveness of their innovative approach. William appreciated Kate's practical perspective. While he was excited about the opportunity, she had consistently ensured they maintained realistic expectations and built-in flexibility for adaptation as they learned what worked and what didn't. A text message from William's private secretary indicated that the press was assembling for the announcement, and final preparations were underway. Both William and Kate felt ready, having spent weeks preparing not only for the work itself, but for explaining their decision to the public and media. "Whatever happens next," William said, taking Kate's hand as they prepared to return to the palace. "I'm grateful we found a way to pursue this opportunity without sacrificing what matters most to us." Kate squeezed his hand, feeling the familiar strength and comfort of their partnership. "I'm proud of us for refusing to accept that it had to be an either-or choice. Sometimes the best solutions require creating entirely new options." As they walked back toward the palace, Kate reflected on how much their approach to royal service had evolved since their wedding day. They had learned to question assumptions about how things had to be done, to advocate for arrangements that supported both effective service and healthy family life. The formal announcement went smoothly, with both William and Kate articulating their vision clearly and answering questions with confidence and enthusiasm. The media response was largely positive, with many commentators noting the innovative approach and its potential for modernizing not only royal service, but international cooperation more broadly. During the family photo session afterward, Kate observed how naturally their children interacted with the cameras and journalists, confident and comfortable in their understanding of their parents' work. This ease came from years of age-appropriate involvement and honest communication about the purpose and importance of public service. "Your Royal Highnesses," one journalist asked during the informal question period, "what message would you like to send to other families trying to balance demanding careers with family life?" Kate and William exchanged glances, having anticipated this question. "I think the key is refusing to accept that you have to choose between meaningful work and meaningful family life," Kate responded. "With creativity, communication, and compromise, it's possible to find ways that strengthen both. We've learned that involving our children in understanding the purpose of our work, rather than simply asking them to accept our absences, creates stronger family bonds while also preparing them to find their own ways to serve others," William added. As the day concluded and the family gathered for dinner, Kate felt a deep sense of satisfaction about the path they had chosen. The challenge ahead would be significant, requiring constant communication, careful planning, and ongoing adjustment as they learned what worked best for their family and their service. George's question during dinner perfectly captured the spirit of their new approach. "Daddy, when you help save the environment, are you helping Louis and Charlotte and me too?" "Every single day," William assured him. "Everything Mummy and I do is about helping create a better world for you and all children." Looking around the dinner table at her family, Kate realized that William's unexpected return home 3 weeks earlier had led to much more than resolving a scheduling conflict. It had prompted them to examine their deepest values, to innovate beyond traditional limitations and to create an approach to service that honored both their commitment to others and their commitment to each other. The months and years ahead would test their new model, requiring constant attention to both their expanded international responsibilities and their unchanged family priorities. However, sitting there with William and their children, Kate felt confident that they had created something sustainable and meaningful, an approach that could serve as a model for others facing similar challenges. William's unexpected return had initially seemed like a crisis requiring difficult choices. Instead, it had become an opportunity for growth, innovation, and deeper understanding of what truly mattered to them as individuals, as a couple, and as a family committed to service. Kate's reaction had said everything, not just about her love for William, but about their shared commitment to finding solutions that honored all of their values rather than forcing them to choose between them. The future stretched ahead, full of possibilities, challenges, and the promise of meaningful impact achieved through innovative approaches to age-old questions about duty, family, and service. For William and Kate, the unexpected had become the foundation for creating something entirely new and deeply authentic to who they were called to be together.